guest is a registered psychologist with experience in running therapeutic groups and one-on-one therapy. He is trained in cognitive behavioural therapy, strengths-based approaches, and has some experience in EMDR. Ahead of Father's Day, we shall talk on mental health and emotional well-being for dads. We welcome Mike to the show. Good morning, Mike, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I've got to say, I'm going to ask you two things. First of all, what is schema therapy? And secondly, what is EMDR?
Yes, the EMDR one comes up a lot.
Yes.
Schema therapy in its shortest version is core beliefs work.
Okay.
So it's going very much back to kind of those very early onset memories and lessons that we learn about ourselves and the world when we are very small, and how those belief systems then impact us as we get older. Usually in the work that I do, unfortunately, it's how they work in a not-so-great way in our kind of current lives.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And EMDR is short for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yep.
And that is what I at least would refer to as the gold standard in trauma processing. So effectively, whether it's kind of long-term trauma, whether it's multiple trauma, or whether it's kind of more recent stuff, EMDR is... There's a lot of stuff around in terms of neuroplasticity and the neurology of things, and EMDR as a way of processing trauma without necessarily having to just sit and talk about the trauma, which is kind of how it used to be done in psychology.
As I said, you are a registered psychologist. Tell us about your interest in psychology, where that came from, and how many years have you been doing this?
So I always have to chuckle because my go-to, which is very tongue-in-cheek, I will add, in terms of why I became a psychologist, is because I like playing with people's minds. I think what attracted me to psychology and why I got into it in the first place was I want people to be the best versions of themselves. I enjoy it when I see people kind of growing and developing and understanding more about themselves than they did before. And this job is kind of the perfect opportunity for that. This role, that is the ability to walk with somebody as they go through a journey of not only becoming aware of their pasts and how they deal with the world, but then considering, how do I deal with the world better to get the kind of life that I want or to get the best outcome that I want?
And I guess sometimes it's about reading someone's mind, because someone might come to you and they don't necessarily really want to tell you what's troubling them, and so then you've got to read into that and then kind of coax it out of them in a kind of different way.
Look, yes and no. Firstly, no, we don't read minds.
I don't really know. I'm not a psychologist.
One of the fields that I've done a lot of work in, which is around, especially in groups, it is a major kind of component, and a lot of the work that I did was actually in the justice judicial field, and a lot of that is around behaviorism. So it's around behavior.
Yep.
So whenever somebody says, you must know what I'm thinking, my answer is always no, because I've got no idea what people are thinking.
You're not a clairvoyant.
Correct. A psychologist, not psychic.
Yes.
But I think a lot of what I believe psychology very, very much involves is reading body language, understanding what's not being said when somebody says something.
Yep.
And sometimes it's kind of also a field that I work quite heavily in is, so you said this, but I meant blah, blah, blah. Yeah, cool, but what you said was this. So I think a lot of the time kind of our body and our brains know what's going on, but we're kind of trying to hide from that unintentionally sometimes because, and this is the key part around trauma and why the EMDR is we don't have to just sit and talk about it. We want to get to a stage where we can process that without your brain just being overloaded, really, with information. So it's not reading people's minds, but there is quite a lot of having to kind of interpret what's said and fitting that with things that they've said before and kind of going, well, hang on, how does that play? How does this fit? Occasionally offering kind of theories or I'm wondering if this is something. But one of the things that I suppose I'm very, very keen on, whoever I'm working with, is you are the expert in your life and you know you way better than I do.
Absolutely.
So I might have a whole heap of ideas of what's going on, But if those don't feel accurate to you, trust your gut well over you trust what I think I'm seeing.
Absolutely. All right, so it is Father's Day coming up this Sunday. And we always talk about the mums and the women and the work that they do. And we know women can juggle a lot, work, the kids and whatever. But the dads play an so very important part in the family as well, And sometimes, not intentionally, they kind of get a bit forgotten because mum's the word kind of thing. And so... you deal with men's health as well, and you're looking at, often, unfortunately, marriages split, so you've got husband and wives living separately, so the child has to, divide its time between mum and dad, and then what does dad do on the weekends and all. So there's a whole complex new issues dealing with that, isn't there?
Yes. And I think one of the things that, there's a couple of things, especially for that kind of separated or when, and this would equally apply in a weird kind of way possibly to kind of the FIFO dads or dads who work away, that whole process. Where I think it gets complicated a lot of the time is because mum is seen as the primary caregiver, because for so many years that is mum's kind of role. I think sometimes it's almost like dads, well, you're here just to provide.
Yes.
You do the physical safety.
Yep.
You do the monetary safety. You do these things.
Yep.
And in a lot of the times, I think, especially in our kind of the modern age, the modern kind of society, whether it's dads themselves or sometimes the mums thinking about the dads, it's actually really complicated to know what is the dad's role. Like, because, there's sometimes almost this expectation, well, it's not just about providing and having the roof over the house. You've got to do these other things. And men are like, yeah, I want to. So what do I do?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, too, going back, say if I go back, my children are all adult now, and if I go back to when they were little, it was kind of, I just expected that I was looking after the kids and the husband's working often away as well. So that was kind of my role. But now, as you say, now I look at my son and daughter with their kids. And unfortunately, my daughter's husband can't be as involved because he's FIFO as well. But my son, will be the one that will take the little one to the swimming lessons on the weekend. Whereas, back when my kids were little, it would have been me. Even if my husband was home, it was kind of, that was my job to do that.
Yeah.
But now I think we're doing better because now we're saying, hang on a minute, the dads can do that on the weekend. There's mum and dad, and dads can share more of this type of stuff, whereas you didn't do that 20, 30 years ago, maybe not generally, And
I feel a big shift there is, nowadays especially, dads are almost more able, potentially, to say they want to do that.
Yes, exactly.
When you go back a bit, like a dad could very well have wanted to do this, wanted to take the kids to swimming lessons, wanted to be involved in this.
Yep.
But whether there was a societal expectation of, oh no, that's not what dads do.
Yes, exactly. What are you doing here?
Or some level of internalized, well, my dad didn't do that, so maybe to be a man, to be a dad, this is what it means.
Exactly.
And I feel like that has definitely shifted. I think there's a lot more involvement and engagement, and dads being, whether it's being able to or being comfortable in saying, no, I want to do that. I want to be part of that. I want to take my daughter to the park. I want to take, I want to go and, have tea parties with my son. Like, I'm able to do that kind of stuff now.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, and for you personally, registered psychologist, some people can, be these people, like what you are, but they necessarily haven't been a father, whatever, themselves. But you are a father, husband, son, and grandson. So you're well versed in your own family life. You've got that as your background, as well as being, a certified registered psychologist as well. So you have life experience and the other experience. So as you say, it's quite complex now, and families are different now too, aren't they? It's not, it's not always husband and wife. It can be wife, husband, whatever, So it's a lot more different nowadays.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more kind of fluidity. I have a friend, I'm originally from New Zealand,
I gathered that.
Yeah, okay. Some people, yeah, okay.
I
won't get into that.
Yeah.
That'll turn into a 20-minute conversation just in itself.
I know. I was about to, actually about 5 minutes ago, I was about to say, and I'm just going to change tack here now and say you're from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
That's right. So I have a friend who... now, I mean, I'm in my 40s, so he'd be in his late 40s possibly by now.
Uh-huh.
And I remember way back when he was a new dad, even kind of just going back to that, it was this whole... He was actually the stay-at-home dad, and his wife was the income earner.
Ah.
And that was a huge, like, even, and this is, 20 years ago or thereabouts.
So
that was huge.
Yeah.
It was, and I think I vaguely recall hearing kind of the fact that he had to talk to a shopping centre about having unisex child-changing facilities.
Oh,
because he went somewhere with his daughter, and he's like, well, I can't go into the ladies' bathrooms to change my child.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it on a toilet seat in the men's toilet.
No, of course. Yeah.
And so I think, there is very much this, it is much more fluid.
Mm-hmm.
There's mum and mum, there's dad and dad, there's mum and dad, there's, mum in one house, dad in another house, there's mum and dad in the same house, even though they've decided that they actually,
are not an item.
In inverted commas, can't live together.
Yeah.
It's way more kind of fluid in terms of these things, I think. And that includes not only the living situations, but often a lot of those kind of societal roles that have been attached.
Well, look, as I said, this is great what you do. As I said, husband, father, son, grandson, and you believe in breaking down stereotypes, which is what we really need to do. And another interesting note here is that you're in a social motorcycle group dedicated to putting a smile on children's faces. So are you one of those riders that bring the teddies at the end of the year?
Not so. We don't do an end of year kind of thing. So basically, the group that I'm in, am I allowed to plug them? Is that a thing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
for it.
So the Guardians of Innocence Australia is our Facebook page, and effectively we're a group of Harley enthusiast Harley riders. We have males, we have females. My 12-year-old daughter is actually a junior member, so she comes on a lot of the rides with us as well.
Oh, wow.
And it's the object of it is it's not once a year we get together and we do this.
Yep.
Our objective is basically to allow any child to know they're not alone, to know that there are people who care about them and think about them.
Yep.
So we will regularly do rides where we will just, we work on a referral basis, so parents will come to us and we'll organise a ride, and we can either do a closed ride, which will just be members of the Guardians, and that could be somewhere between 5 and 8 kind of bikes. And we have had situations where we've done open rides where we have contacts with a whole heap of other social groups. We have contacts with car clubs. We might get, I think the biggest one I've been involved in, which was actually for an adult in this case, but was for there was a situation with cancer going on, and we organised, I want to say we had something like 120 bikes arrive.
Oh,
so
wow.
Our objective in terms of the kids especially is we turn up, the kids can go for a ride on one of the bikes, they can go for a drive on one of the cars if we've got cars there, they get a T-shirt, they get a hat, and they're introduced to the idea of the fact that family, and this does come back to kind of the dad stuff as well, family is not just the people who live in your house.
No, of course.
Family are those people who care about you, who have a connection and are close to you, whether they're physically close or not. And so I like to think that all of the kids that we go out and do the smile rides for, there's a little part of them that it now has part of a family that's part of this kind of motorcycle community.
Oh, well, look, what a great dad-daughter thing to do as well. Look, we have run out of time. It would be awesome to continually chatting with you. You specialise in men's mental health, trauma processing, dysfunctional core beliefs and communication. For more information, if people want to have a word with you or want to know more information about your workshops and all the rest that we've spoken about today, what is the best thing to do?
The best thing to do would be to give the office a call. In all honesty, that would be the first place I'd start. Do I give you the number? Is that how that works?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can give us the number.
Okay. So the office line is 0894902258. The office is operated out of Gosnells. However, we also do phone if it's easier, if it's more convenient for people. We also, by all means, go to the Women's Health and Wellbeing Services website. Coming up, hopefully, next term and heading into next year, there'll be a lot more focus, from kind of in my mind at least, this is where I'm aiming, a lot more focus on some men's groups, even including kind of heading into next year, some kind of social groups that allow kind of men just to come together, and we don't have to sit down and talk about our feelings. We can just come together, and we might go rock climbing and have a bit of a chat, or we might go and have a conversation about kind of exercise and then do a workout somewhere, like at a gym or an outdoor kind of thing. So social connection, I think, is a big thing that I talk to a lot about in terms of men's mental health, because that is traditionally how men find that connection. It's not specifically things, it's just social interactions. It's doing the things I enjoy with other men at the same time.
Mike, it's been my absolute pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you so much for your time on 89.7 FM's The Wednesday Morning Show. We're going to go out, and I'll leave you with this song, Mike. If you could read my mind, lucky you can't.
Thanks very much.